And is that the final nail in the coffin on Sheffield Wednesday as a championship club before we have even kicked a ball in the EFL Championship 25-26 season? Reports are surfacing. It is late on Monday night. You'll probably hear this on Tuesday morning. More may be known then, but we think Danny Rohl is now on his way out of Hillsbrough. Kind of the last asset that Mr. Chansiri had been able to hold on to up until this point. And I guess the last lifeline, what little chance we think Sheffield Wednesday would have had going into this season was kind of based on the fact, look, there's a manager there. There's a manager who's done well, who's got a lot of talent. Can they just keep hold of him, get through a takeover and see where they go from there? It looks, as has tended to be the case with Sheffield Wednesday, particularly this summer, and, you know, go back how far you want to with Mr. Chansiri, that this is going to work out in the absolute worst possible way. For Wednesday, for Mr. Chansiri, perversely really, and of course for the Sheffield Wednesday fans. Get down there in the comments. How significant is this now? Are we turning the lights out already on Sheffield Wednesday? Are we looking at, well, we'll judge 23 teams in the Championship next season because one of them's just not going to be able to compete in any kind of feasible manner. Let's talk specifically about Danny Rohl, because he's kind of been at the centre of this whole collapse around Mr. Chansiri and him kind of, you know, just pulling every resource out of the club. And if you wind back into last season, Danny Rohl was not very happy and kind of sort of agitating to get away, and had pretty much nailed his colours to the mast that, before the end of last season, that he was going to be leaving Sheffield Wednesday, that he hadn't got the support that he needed, that, you know, promises that were being made weren't being kept, and it was just a hospital pass of a managerial job. By the way, that we think he'd done pretty well, a great escape in his first season, and given squad personnel and where Wednesday kind of laid in the kind of budget hierarchy, again, for them to be in the middle of the table last season was an excellent job by Danny Rohl. Now, the issue was that one sensible business decision that Mr. Chansiri had made was to put a nice pair of golden handcuffs on Danny Rohl with the contract that Rohl signed, or rather the second contract he'd signed, the sort of extension, the renewal of his contract, where we think, I don't know what the number is, I hear £5 million, that a big number due in compensation for Danny Rohl was going to be required to get him out of Sheffield Wednesday. I dare say, if that factor, that clause, that element of the contract hadn't been there, this video would probably have been made months ago, wouldn't it? And Danny Rohl would have been out of Sheffield Wednesday. He kind of cleared his desk. We get the idea at the end of last season, with the idea that he probably wasn't going to be coming back. The Wednesday fans were maybe not too happy about that, because the idea was that he and his agents were sort of basically trying to find work. But it seemed that every time, and we think Leicester and we think Middlesbrough, and I'm sure there were other clubs interested, especially given he's a European manager, probably across the continent, young, highly regarded manager, but no one could get him out or were willing to pay the compensation, which seemingly was just a stumbling block for every club that Danny Rohl seemed to be linked with. So on and on and on we went through the summer. Obviously, back at Hillsbrough, we had another transfer embargo coming in. We had more late payment of wages. We had this kind of sort of breach of contract, allowing players to just end their deals and walk away for nothing. And again, that's going to be a big theme of this, because through all of this, I think there's a big link with Southampton, possibly when Russ Martin was going and Southampton brought in Ivan Juric in the Premier League. And it feels like 3, 4, 5 times they could have cashed in to some extent on Danny Rohl. And this has just been a repeat pattern with Mr. Chansiri in that playing these weird games of brinksmanship that he plays, letting things go to the last second and being stubborn, seems to be just devaluing his asset and all of the the kind of capital that he's put into people. He just gets nothing back on the back end. And it now looks like Danny Rohl is going to be allowed to walk away. And that kind of one piece of real estate, the clause in his contract, for the manager where they could have got something back, that appears to be going up in flames as well. So this is Joe Cran for the Sheffield Star. Wednesday are close to an agreement that would see Danny Rohl leave the Owls. Rohl was linked with a number of jobs, UK and abroad. To the shock of practically everyone, he returned to Middlewood Road. So yeah, that's one piece of the story I hadn't got to. That despite clearing his desk and trying to get out of the club, he did return. And that kind of, maybe I was naive. I kind of thought, well, is something happening? Is there going to be takeover stuff? Before that, some brokers had been brought in terms of, pitching the football club to potential buyers. And I don't know. My brain was going, well, if he's back, something must be about to happen, mustn't it? Or had he just run out of options at that point and just needed to show up to work to not breach his own contract himself, I guess. The Star reported previously his tenure for 25-26 remain unclear. Talks ongoing about his future. It's now understood the involved parties are close to finding an agreement that would see him move on via a mutual termination of his contract. Read between the lines there. If that's been leaked to Joe Cran, who, as I say, is one of the local beat journalists there, that we're close to a mutual termination, you'd imagine that that's pretty bob on to happen now, wouldn't you? I mean, we will see. So you just wonder who has waived what there, because, I mean, it benefits Danny Rohl far more to be released from his contract than it does for Sheffield Wednesday to release him. So I don't know why Sheffield Wednesday or Mr. Chansiri would agree to that happening if they've got a contract for a guy and there's compensation to be paid out. So I don't know what's going on there or why that would have happened, but it appears that it is about to happen. And if you're Danny Rohl, it's kind of good news, isn't it? You're out of a difficult situation. You're probably a little bit annoyed because you could be the Southampton manager, the Middlesbrough manager, the Leicester manager, insert club expected to challenge towards the Championship. Although sometimes with management, if you're hot and people think that you are a really decent young manager and you're available at the start of the season, your stock just rises, doesn't it? And you know, as well as I do, won't even be the middle of September before a nice juicy Championship job comes up. And by the time we reach October, November, December, probably 8 will have come up already, contrary to what I said in my bold predictions there. But normally, I think it might be fewer this season, I've got to say. But normally, we'd think 8 to 10 jobs would come up, certainly by the end of that January transfer window in the Championship. So it's kind of all right for Danny Rohl, and he always going to whatever the kind of suspicion maybe from some Wednesday fans about him going away and maybe leaving the club in the lurch, and sort of coming back basically with his tail between his legs a little bit. Other owners are not going to care in the slightest about that. The argument will be run, it was Chansiri, it was an impossible job, and he did it to the best of his ability, and he'll act far better. Or if you do have an issue with the way he's conducted himself, Danny Rohl, under more stable ownership. So yeah, I suspect that will work out nicely for Rohl, and he'll be in a job sooner rather than later. But for Wednesday, it really, really sucks. And again, maybe I was being naive and just playing best case scenario, but I always thought, okay, whatever happens, even if it's half of the youth team and a few free transfers, but they've still got Danny Rohl, there'll be some sense of competition about it. They'll have a go at teams. They'll probably be able to win a few games. Yeah? That was kind of my take on it. And I've always thought if Danny Rohl goes, then Wednesday really can just pack up. And we think it'll be... This was another strange part of the tale. What's his name? Is it Henrik? Yeah, Henrik Pedersen, who was given a new contract at the start of July, I believe, in the midst of people not being paid. So basically, we had this situation where Röhl's assistant was given a new contract with the idea being Röhl's not going to come back and Pedersen will go on and be the manager. And of course, in true Sheffield Wednesday fashion, Röhl actually comes back and they're probably now paying two people managers' wages. I'm sure Pedersen's much, much cheaper than Röhl. But look, unless Henrik Pedersen is some cross between Brian Clough, Don Revie, Bobby Robson, Alex Ferguson, Pep Guardiola, Jose Mourinho, Jurgen Klopp, it's going to be the hardest job you can get. And at the back end of this article by Joe Crown, it says, even this week, Akin Famewo, who's a useful centre-half, played free at the back a lot, Danny Rohl, and Callum Patterson, who I just checked is only 30. And I say this lovingly, Callum. He's looked about 50 for the last 10 years and fine servant at Sheffield Wednesday with a very fascinating highlight reel with some of the goals he scored, particularly in the COVID era. Always managed to kind of bundle the ball into the goal in strange positions, being in the right place at the right time. But I just would have been a useful player to keep around. And I mean, if I bring transfer marked up here, I know we did this last time. This is just a joke now, isn't this? So these are players who were under contract last season who are not going to be under contract this season. So Hamer, Johnson, Bannon, Famewo, Hatsus, Armstrong, Musaba, Ihekwa, Smith, Valentin, Wilkes, Patterson, Windass, Gassama. It's half a squad, isn't it? And what is really sad about that is, say, the likes of Smith, Windass scored the goal to get them up. I guess Ihekwa, Bannon, obviously, is a bit of a club legend. So the players that got Wednesday into the Championship are kind of all just walking away and disappearing. And the ones that have actually arrived that have done something, particularly Gassama and Musaba, any assets they've got since they've been up are also going. And they're basically going to be left with absolutely no one now and no manager as well. So pretty depressing news coming out of Sheffield Wednesday. What's new, frankly? Let me know your thoughts. I mean, I'm phrasing it as final nail in the coffin. Not to get accused of YouTube hyperbole and all of that stuff, but the coffin was already kind of pretty well set, wasn't it? I think a few nails have been hammered in over time, but yeah, this just feels like the last big asset not going to be at the club next season. And yeah, it just feels really, really bleak and almost one of those. And we've mentioned like Blackpool under the Oystons and Bolton when they had to play the youth players, where it's just like you effectively don't have a chance. You're guaranteed to finish bottom and you're going to just lose every week and, just fight it out and get through the year. And obviously the goal at the end of the rainbow for Wednesday would be a takeover, a new owner, and basically reset, start over, all over again. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down there in the comments. With Danny Rohl about to leave Sheffield Wednesday. I'm trying to think what we can pop up there, and with no sense of sarcasm here, Wednesday fans. Yesterday, I did my League One, 1 to 24. You may be up close and personal once again with a few of these teams. So check out what's going to be going on down in League One next season, because it looks really like that's where Wednesday are headed.